Why did it take so long for them to figure out that a law had been broken by the prosecutor and that they had to release the man on a technicality? 2 years. I mean, if I was him, I wouldn't sue him. I would just let it go. But I would be thinking, man, I was in jail for 2 years. You guys couldn't have figured that out quicker? So anyway, Bill Cosby has been released from prison on a technicality. And the guy is like 80 years old. So I don't know what will happen in the future, if they'll try to retry or whatever. But he's not a young guy. So chances are he'll never go back to jail. He'll be fighting if they try to bring him up on charges again or retry the case because he got out on the technicality. I'm guessing that it'll take them a while before they can determine or decide what exactly to do or even to follow through with whatever. The guy, unless the guy lives another 10 years, unless he's in that good a shape physically, he'll probably die before anything legally happens because, courts move slow. And the reason they move slow is because they got a lot of cases. They can't, they got to try to get to everybody. There's over 300 million people in the U.S. Okay, so there's a lot of things going in and out of courts all day. So anyway, Bill Cosby has been released on a technicality, and we'll see what happens with that, if anything. That might just be the end of it. But anyway, we're going to go to a break. This is the last one, and we'll be right back.
And now, without further ado, the man we've all been waiting for, T-Jam D. Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. All right, here's just some tidbits of stuff that was in the news that we missed because I hadn't done this podcast for a few weeks, and that was quietly Derek Chauvin, the police officer who murdered George Floyd, was sentenced to 22.5 years in prison. So the dumbass, racist jackass, the reason I called him a dumbass, Derek Chauvin, the reason I call him a dumbass because anytime I see that video footage of him with his knee on the neck of George Floyd, I'm always thinking, you can't possibly be so evil that you're just letting that evil cloud your judgment. I mean, it's broad daylight. You're on a city street in a populated area, and you've got a guy who's not a murderer or a child molester. You caught him, robbing a bank, and he pulled a gun on you. None of these things that would cause you to kill the guy on the spot. You're holding this guy down with your knee on his neck, killing him. And you feel that that's totally fine and that you're going to get away with it. To me, that boggles my mind. I don't care if you're a police officer. To me, that people are standing around videotaping, recording this incident and asking you, get off the guy's neck, and you're so, he's so blatant when, he's got his knee on Floyd's neck, and such a dick face about the whole situation that you're not smart enough to say, listen, this doesn't look good. There's a lot of people around videotaping, recording this video, putting it on Facebook Live and in every other manner of social media. out there that there's no way that I can get away with it. I mean, the guy was just arrogant. I guess he put his knee on people's necks before. I don't know if any of them died but obviously it was something that he thought that was not going to result in him being sentenced to 22.5 years and causing the biggest protest in American history. I mean, the whole world protested that. So that's something that happened. Derek Chauvin being sentenced to 22 years in prison. And considering, the big deal that it was, and the fact that, black people are still being shot by the cops all over the country, even after that happened. There's been several other incidents where an unarmed black person, male or female, has had I wouldn't call it a confrontation because they didn't do most of the time they didn't do anything. The guy in Atlanta who was at the Wendy's and was drunk, he actually did hit the cops and just took off running and got shot in the back. Don't remember this guy's name. Sorry about that, but there's been several other incidents. So the fact that he was sentenced to 22 years, and some people would wonder, is that enough? I don't know if that's enough, really. To me, I don't know how old the guy is, or if 22 years, if he'll make it through that, or it'll be hard for him to make it through there, unless they put him with other people, put him with the Aryan Brotherhood or something, who they'll act like he's some kind of a hero or something. They'll protect him. But if he's in just the regular population, everyone knows who he is. He won't make it. They'll end up getting to him and shanking him or something. So anyway, that happened. That's something that was not big news, but it was news. The Stand Your Ground law. Remember the Stand Your Ground law? Stand Your Ground law is a law that allowed Trayvon Martin's, I can't remember his name, George something. We go from George Floyd being killed to George, I can't remember what that guy's name is. Gonzalez? George something. Anyway, he killed Trayvon Martin based on the Stand Your Ground law. That law is spreading across America, actually, across the country. There's more states adopting the Stand Your Ground law, which means when you are attacked by someone, you can shoot them. And you know that falls under this. I was standing my ground. They used to just call it self-defense, but now it's morphed into Stand Your Ground, where you can just claim that you were being attacked and shoot someone, and then you won't go. You might not even get arrested, actually, once you say, "Oh, this guy was attacking me, and I stood my ground and shot him." So that law is actually spreading across there's more states adopting it. Not quite sure if that's going to be good or bad, but you can look out for that all across America. Stand your ground. Critical race theory is the next thing that the Republicans are arguing about. The Republicans are trying to scare people into voting for them. That's all they do. They don't have any agenda. Or they don't have anything to say that they're going to do for you as a citizen of this country. They're not going to do anything for you. They just want to scare you into voting for them. Like, if you don't vote for me, something bad is going to happen to you because of the Democrats. And first it was Mr. Potato Head, they were saying, talking about cancel culture and Mr. Potato Head being canceled, along with Pepe Le Pew and who was the other one that they were so up in arms about? I can't remember the other cartoon character. It'll come to me. But, first they were talking about cancel culture, which, these were companies that made these toys and cartoons that were using cancel culture. Here I go again with the tongue tied. They were using cancel culture to bring some attention to their product, the movie, the Space Jam. There's another Space Jam movie coming out with LeBron James in it, and so it's a Warner Brothers movie. So they have the Warner Brothers cartoon characters in the movie, which include Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, and a host of others, Foghorn Leghorn. But they wanted to say, we're not going to have Pepe Le Pew in the movie, and we're not going to produce that cartoon anymore. They haven't produced it in 30 years anyway. So they was using that to bring some attention to the movie. Mr. Potato Head was a toy that probably hasn't sold any since Toy Story. They had a Mr. Potato Head on Toy Story. But now the Republicans are using the term critical race theory, which was a term developed at Harvard. Harvard, the Ivy League school for intelligent kids with a great work ethic. It's a prestigious Ivy League school. They were the ones who were been talking about critical race theory for years. But Republicans would lead you to believe that all the elementaries in America are teaching critical race theory, which is not true. There's not one elementary that you can find that teaches critical race theory. Not one middle school, and probably only one or two high schools that has and those are private schools that have a history teacher that even brings up the term critical race theory. They're not teaching this in elementary. So Republicans are pretending like they're going to stop something that's not happening. It's easy to stop something that's not happening. Okay, I'm drafting a bill that will stop schools from teaching something that they're not teaching. Okay, great. They can scare people who are uninformed or don't want to know. They just want to listen to Fox News and say, yeah, I agree that nobody should be teaching. Our kids should not be learning critical race theory, which no elementaries or middle schools or public schools of any kind are teaching critical race theory. So private schools you have to pay for. And 99.9% of them are not teaching critical race theory either. Critical race theory was something that was taught, or I don't even know if it was, you can call it taught, brought up by a professor at Harvard University. Okay, that's where it originated, the discussion of it at Harvard. So I suppose those of you who can afford Harvard and those of you who can get an academic scholarship to Harvard don't want to send your kid there or go there because they talk about critical race theory. By all means, don't do it. But for the rest of us who have kids in public school, they're not teaching critical race theory. That's just a scare tactic so some Republicans can promise to do something about it when they get elected. If you vote for me, I'll do something about this critical race theory being taught to our children. And it's not being taught to your children. So it's easy to do something about something that's not happening. After they don't do anything about it, they can take credit for not doing anything because it's not being taught anyway to our children. There's no elementaries teaching critical race theory, no public schools anywhere in the country that teaches this.